On the top floor of a skyscraper, a CEO named Eleanor Vance ran her corporate empire. Her world was all polished glass and silent assistants, a place where she made decisions that moved millions. But Eleanor was haunted by a past she couldn't escape, a ghost that visited in the quiet moments after the boardroom emptied. Down below, a janitor named Liam cleaned that boardroom. He was a single father with nothing but his kindness and his exhaustion. His world was squeaking carts, the sharp smell of disinfectant, and the bone-deep worry for his little girl at home. Their two worlds were never supposed to collide. But one day, driven by a memory that wouldn't let her rest, Eleanor found herself secretly cleaning his house. She knew it was only a matter of time before he'd walk in, and she would have to tell him everything. If you believe a single act of kindness can change a life, take a second to like this video and subscribe. We love sharing stories that prove the best parts of humanity are often found where we least expect them. It started with the small things. Eleanor noticed details. It's what made her a titan of industry. And she started noticing Liam. He wasn't just another employee. He had this quiet dignity about him. While others rushed out of the office, leaving a mess behind, Liam moved through the space with meticulous care, restoring order to the chaos. He was polite, almost invisible, but his exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. One evening, Eleanor was prepping for a late conference call when she saw him in the hallway. He was tucked into an alcove with his back to her, talking on the phone. His voice was so low and gentle, completely different from the sharp, commanding tones that usually filled these halls. "No, sweet pea, Daddy's not mad. It's just another ear infection. We'll go to the doctor in the morning, I promise. Yes, I'll be home soon." He hung up and just leaned his head against the cool glass of the window. His shoulders slumped with a weight that seemed too heavy for one person to carry. In that one unguarded moment, Eleanor didn't see a janitor. She saw a ghost from a life she had fought so hard to bury. She saw herself 20 years younger, standing in a cramped apartment, whispering the exact same promises to her own sick child, with the same fear gnawing her stomach. She remembered the impossible choice between a doctor's bill and rent, the ache of exhaustion, and the profound loneliness of fighting a battle no one else sees. That night, Liam stopped being just the janitor. He became a mirror. Eleanor couldn't shake the image of Liam's tired face. Just offering him money felt wrong. Too much like charity. It would create a power dynamic she wanted no part of. Pity is an insult, but support is a lifeline. She wanted to give him the one thing she had desperately needed back then. Not just money, but time. A moment to breathe. A chance to just be a father instead of a provider constantly running on empty. So, driven by this fierce new purpose, she did something that broke every corporate and ethical rule she'd ever made. Citing a fake employee wellness initiative, she went to HR and got Liam's address. The guilt pricked at her, but the memory of his slumped shoulders was stronger. She found herself driving to a part of town she hadn't seen in years, the modest apartment building painfully familiar. That weekend, with her heart pounding, she used the spare key she'd seen him leave under a loose brick by the door, a classic habit of the overworked who fear losing things. The apartment was small and tidy, but worn. Toys were stacked neatly in a corner, and a child's drawing of a stick figure family was taped to the fridge. It was a home filled with love, but also the strain of a life lived on the edge. For the next few hours, Eleanor didn't feel like a CEO. She felt like her 25-year-old self again. She washed the dishes in the sink, scrubbed the floors, and folded the laundry. Before leaving, she put a store-bought lasagna in the oven and left a simple, anonymous note from a friend. "You're doing a great job." She got out of there before he could get home, her adrenaline soaring with a mix of fear and a forgotten sense of purpose. She did it again the next week, and the week after that. It was a Tuesday when the whole secret shattered. Liam's daughter, Lily, had been sent home from school with a high fever. He'd raced from work hours early, his mind spinning. He fumbled with the key, pushed the door open, and just stopped. The house was immaculate. The floors gleamed, the air smelled of lemon polish, and a pot of chicken soup was simmering on the stove. For weeks, he'd been coming home to these small miracles. He'd figured it was a kind neighbor, maybe someone from a church group. He was too tired and too grateful to question it. But today, he heard a soft humming from the kitchen. He crept forward, his heart starting to pound. He saw a woman with her back to him, wiping down his countertops. She was in jeans and a sweater, her hair in a ponytail. When she turned to put the cloth in the sink, Liam's world tilted. It was Eleanor Vance, the CEO. The woman's portrait hung in the lobby of the building he cleaned every night, and she was standing in his kitchen wearing yellow rubber gloves. His mind just couldn't process it. It was like two universes colliding. His first thought was pure terror. He was going to be fired. Was this some bizarre, cruel test? Miss Vance? The name came out as a choked whisper. Eleanor froze, her hand hovering over the sink. Her eyes widened in panic. She turned slowly, her face pale. She looked like a deer in headlights. The silence in that tiny kitchen was deafening, thick with confusion and fear. He had caught her red-handed, and there was nowhere to run. "Liam," she said, her voice stripped of all its usual authority. It was quiet, unsteady. I can explain." She pulled off the rubber gloves with trembling hands, as if shedding the last piece of her disguise. All the boardroom confidence was gone. She was just a woman in a stranger's kitchen, looking deeply ashamed. "Explain what?" Liam's voice was strained. "Why are you in my house? Are you firing me?" No, of course not," she said, taking a hesitant step forward. "It's not what you think. Please, just let me explain." She motioned to the small kitchen table, and they both sat. The simmering soup filled the air with a warmth neither of them felt. Eleanor stared at her hands, took a deep breath, and finally looked at him, her eyes filled with a vulnerability she never could have imagined. 20 years ago, she began, her voice barely a whisper, I was a single mom with a 4-year-old son. I worked 2 jobs, waitress during the day, and I cleaned offices at night. Offices that looked a lot like yours. She told him everything about coming home long after dark to a son she barely saw, about the constant crushing fear of a car breaking down or a sick day she couldn't afford. She told him about one night, a memory seared into her soul, when she came home at midnight in a winter rain to find her son crying with a fever and an eviction notice on the door, with not a single dollar to her name. I never forgot that feeling, she said, tears welling in her eyes. The feeling of being completely, utterly alone. The feeling that the world is moving on and no one even sees you drowning. She looked right at him, her gaze direct. When I saw you on the phone that night, when I saw that exhaustion in your eyes, I didn't see an employee, Liam. I saw myself. I saw that same quiet desperation. I know you're a proud man. I knew you'd never accept a handout, so I decided to give you the one thing I never had back then. Not just money, but a little breathing room, a clean house, a warm meal. I wasn't trying to interfere. I was trying to pay a debt to the woman I used to be. Liam just sat there in stunned silence, all the anger and fear drained out of him and replaced by an emotion so powerful it took his breath away. For years, he'd felt invisible, a ghost cleaning up for everyone else. And now, the most powerful person he knew was telling him that she didn't just see him, she understood him. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen. The next day, everything was different, but not how Liam expected. Eleanor didn't give him a quiet promotion or a raise. She did something much bigger. She called a company-wide meeting and announced the launch of the Vance Family Foundation. It was a new corporate initiative that included a fully subsidized on-site childcare center, flexible hours for parents, and a massive expansion of the company's healthcare benefits. She never mentioned Liam by name, but as she spoke, her eyes found his in the crowd, and he knew this wasn't charity. This was change. True leadership isn't about the view from the top. It's about having the humility to remember what it's like at the bottom. Eleanor Vance didn't just help one man. She remembered where she came from and used her power to build up her people. In the end, Liam got the breathing room he desperately needed, and Eleanor, after 20 years, finally healed a part of herself she thought was long lost, proving that kindness is the one investment that always pays you back.